I think that we're streaming. Let's hit reload on Twitch and see whether or not it starts to spam ads. Yep, so we're streaming. Hurrah. Once again, it says exited host mode. That still makes me nervous. I guess there's a manage auto host button. I'll just check on that for a second here before I do anything else. No authorized broadcasters. Auto hosting is off, so I don't know why it keeps telling me that that I was hosting, because it's all turned off and I wasn't hosting. Good. So today we're going to go and make our serialization work again. We've been trying desperately to get JSON utilities to work, and it just doesn't. So we're switching it out for LitJSON, a derivative of LitJSON made by the same guy that made Saber CSG, and it works great. So that's what we're going to do today. Hey, pink hair. And should be fun. Beefy Whale shows up. I don't think I've seen that name in chat before, so welcome. I do spaceship stuff, and today I'm serializing them to JSON so that I can load them and stream them over the internet. So we're going to take a look at our scripts here, and we've got these serializers. So the difficulty that we've had in the past month is that the JSON utilities serializer has some extraordinary constraints. It can't serialize arrays. It can't serialize two-dimensional arrays if you do manage to serialize arrays by working around it. So all told, it's better to just replace it, and that's what we're going to do. Also, I'm using Voicemeeter to try and get my voice to sound a little bit less foggy. So let me know how the voice quality is here in stream. Also, let me know if it crashes, So here you can see this JSON utility to JSON. So we're going to take that out, and instead we're going to return the new JSON lit, or LitJSON dot JSON mapper, and then we can just pass it room serialization this. And we'll just check and see whether or not I remember the syntax correctly. No, I didn't remember it correctly. Maybe I don't need to use that. It's just a one-line thing. I just have to remember what it is. I think it was a JSON mapper. Yeah, I'm like 90% sure that it's a JSON mapper. Oh, here it is. JSON mapper is a class. Idiot. There we are. To JSON, and then we can say room serialization. There we are. So it's exactly the same. Instead of JSON utility.toJSON, it's JSON mapper.toJSON. And that should work. Well, I think that'll work. Let's go ahead and start to do some replacements. We're going to take a look at all of the places where JSON utility gets called. And really, we're going to just basically replace them all with a litjson.json mapper. So I don't know whether from JSON is something it can do. Let's take a look. To JSON, to object, to wrapper, unregister importers and exporters. So I think that importing from JSON might be a little bit more complex. Let's take a look and see whether or not we can just do this. Hey Wonker, we are working on making our serialization work, which is surprisingly has taken us quite a few weeks, and we'd like to stop it from taking quite a few weeks. So the difference is that instead of from JSON, it's to object, which is obviously not a big deal. We can deal with that. to object. And that should be it. I think that's all the references that we had to our serialization. And so now we're going to see whether or not we can properly get the information that we were having such a hard time with before. And that information is this Blumpo. Previously, we were having an issue where we weren't getting the customized elements of this ship. Customized elements include all of these. They all have a customized amount. And we weren't getting that in our serialization. We should from now on. Kind. Let's take a look, shall we? Okay, so there are a couple of problems. I forgot that this does not serialize the vector 3 elements, so we're going to go and take a look. We're serializing the problem is that when you're serializing a vector 3, it's actually going to try and serialize all of the references to a vector 3. So for us, this ship component serializer, here it is. This has a vector 3, position and scale. The problem is that these position and scale, they also have a reference to other vector 3s that end up being like normal.normal.normal.normal.normal.normal. So that is an annoyance. I forgot that this was going to be a thing. So one of our options is to have a C# class which can cast to and from a vector 3 very, very fast and easily, just for serialization's purpose. Another option is to override the JSON mapper so that it will properly restrict itself to just the vector 3's public values that are actual hard values. I didn't build this library though, so I'm not sure how to do it. Of course, the other option is we can go back and use JSON utilities again, but we can't use any of this stuff if we do. So what we're going to try to do is just create a public class v3, and then we will we could also make this a whole transform element. Now that I'm thinking about it, transform serialization. And that way we won't have to worry so much about it. So we'll just system.serializable. We could actually store the transform as a string separately. Let's try that first. That requires the least amount of stupidity. And Erdroy stopped in. So public transform, no, public string transform. Comment those out. And then here, we'll just say transform equals. So there are a lot of options as to how we want to play this. Let's first see whether or not our new lit.json actually works on serializing transforms. It won't, but we'll try it anyway. Well, even if we can serialize the transform, now that I'm thinking about it, we can't unserialize it. So let's make it just a string and use Unity's built-in JSON utility, and we'll use a split of both if we need to. Component.transform. Let's see whether or not it understands how to do that. And then down here, when we get this here, we're going to have to get these to come back. I can't serialize a transform. I'm 99% sure that it can't serialize a transform. Well, yeah, Kruzung, it is possible in a couple of places, but Blender's gone and done some pretty advanced synthesis. You can do a lot of composite stuff that you really would have a hard time doing anywhere else. But the lack of a Z buffering and the fact that you can't transform a filled ink shape into a mesh is a real problem. All right, so after all of that nonsense, I guess I am going to which is worse? Well, let's go ahead and do this. Either way, we're gonna have to do something stupid. So we will just make this a system.serializable. And we'll make this a public float. X, Y, Z, SX, X, Y, S, Z, and for our quaternion, we're going to need W, QW, QX, QY, and QZ. Public transform serialization transform T. X equals T dot local position dot X, and so on. Now this is, I might regret this later. The problem is that I have JSON utility which can't parse strings, and I have lit.json which can't parse vector3s. So there's no real great options here, unfortunately. I either use no strings or I use no vectors. So it's easier to not use any vectors. Erdroy says, I have some of my own math in my help. You could add serializable to vectors in the library and recompile them. You then use my vector 3, 4, etc. Oh, are you talking about, you're talking about the library that you built? Yeah, it's no big deal. I don't need any kind of functionality out of them. I just need a serialization helper. So we're not going to worry about it. Y, X, Y, and Z. X, Y, and Z. And then we just go the opposite direction when we want to untransform. So deserialize unto transform T. Void. Just reverse all of these here. Do 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 do. SX, SY, SZ, and like a QW, QX, QY, and QZ. And that should be all we need to do in order to get these to serialize properly. So here we're going to just go ahead and make this into a transform serialization transform. And that should work, but we're going to have to say that the transform is going to be a new transform serialization, and then pass it our transform. Component.transform, isn't it? Yeah, component.transform. So that will allow us to quickly create a whole category and load it up properly. When we go to serialize it, it will automatically get serialized by the lit.json mapper. And then down here in deserialize, when we want to load it up, we simply set it up like this. We say sc, or we say, what is this? It's called transform.deserialize onto, and then we pass it the transform. There we go. And that should do the task, rather than setting the scale, position, and rotation individually. So that should work. Let's try it out. Oh, that's right. You can't actually do this. I forgot. I got about 3 hours of sleep last night, so this might not be a very great new stream. I am running on almost no sleep, so that's fun, right? Oh. There we go. Say, there we are. Do it. Got any more issues with me? No, they're fine. Spitting up a whole lot of errors due to the Unity beta, which I wouldn't have upgraded to if I'd known I was going to use LitJSON instead. Causes all sorts of issues, incompatibilities. Alright, well, let's take a look and see whether or not we got our final verdict here. Here you can see that it's correctly serializing the transform. And here you can see that it's correctly serializing the amount. Da 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 da! Haha! Fixed all of our problems, and it only took me 15 minutes on 3 hours of sleep. You just gotta stop using broken libraries and use ones that work. Why do we have 2 cameras in this scene? Oh, that's right. Wow, I have not had enough sleep. So let's pop on over to our garden and see whether or not we can load up that spaceship. Oh, we better, hold on. Ship. Right now we are saving the ship every time we create it, aren't we? Yeah. So let's not save the ship. Now, the reason we're not saving the ship is because we don't need to permanently save a copy of every variant of the ship. We don't have a difference yet between the idea of a class of ships versus an individual ship. We don't want to save 10,000 individual ships as independent classes. That would be really kind of obnoxious. And here you can see that we don't have any ships in our inventory. That's interesting. What happened? Oh, LitJSON can't deserialize something if it doesn't have a default constructor. So we'll go ahead and create a default constructor for keyPair workaround. Where is keyPair workaround? We don't even need keyPair workaround anymore, do we? We can just use a dictionary. Let's see whether or not we can use a dictionary. And the way we're going to see that is down here in Universe.io. We're just going to add a quick little detail. Dictionary string. Oh, it's serving up another ad to me. I wish it wouldn't serve ads to the preview. That's the dumbest thing ever. If my stream froze, let me know. Oh, like that's gonna help. And debug.log litjson dot JSON wrapper dot to JSON. Oh, that's an iJSON wrapper. Dot to JSON mapper. To JSON, and then we're gonna pass it test and see whether or not this works. Oh, great. NDrummer says that I'm doing fine in terms of not freezing. So let's just add in a quick little value here. Blah and bleh. And let's just see whether or not LitJSON can handle dictionaries. Blah and bleh. So we don't need the key mapper anymore. We don't need anything like that. We can get rid of all of our wrapper classes. That's great, because they were really obnoxious. So let's go over and find our various key pair references and get rid of them. We don't need them anymore. So the only one we still need is this. So basically we're trading out 5 different wrapper classes for one class that serializes the one thing that Unity needs, from itself. The one Unity class that we need. But I don't know where our key pair serialization array workaround is not needed anymore. We can just use an array, so let's get rid of this. Bam! And then let's find all the references to it first. There we are. Then, bam! Don't need it. Don't need it. So we'll go over here. We no longer need to have an array workaround. We just have an array. So we will take a look here at just serializing the array. There. Don't need this. And then here, once again, we're just going to set up our part serialization to an array, which I believe is an array of strings, if I'm not mistaken. Do we have another array mapper floating around here somewhere? I think I might have cleared them all out. Alright, so let's take a look and see whether or not it complains about array mapper. There it is, array workaround. So we still have an array workaround somewhere, or is it just that we forgot to save? There, we just forgot to save. Boom. Alright, so we no longer have an array workaround. Let's go ahead and see whether or not it will load up the list of ships correctly. Keep pair workaround. It wasn't the array workaround that was giving us the problem, it was the keep pair workaround. So let's delete the other workaround class that we've got that nobody wants because they suck. Delph0 says, why don't you use Visual Studio instead? That's a complicated question. Basically, I have a hard time with Microsoft. Because I don't log into a Microsoft Windows account for my Windows. It's a legal copy of Windows, but I'm not going to log in with Microsoft servers. I don't automatically log into their various free pieces of software. And Visual Studio Community Edition requires that you have a valid login on Microsoft's account system. Most people have one without even realizing it because the Windows generally comes set up like that. I don't. So I can't actually boot up the Visual Studio that comes with Unity. It says that I don't have a proper license and I need to go to Microsoft, register with them, log in, and all that jazz. And I have a very strong urge not to do that. Besides, there's a new version of MonoDevelop coming down the chain in a couple of months, a month or two, that should have some pretty serious improvements, so I'm looking forward to that. So we were looking for the other workaround class, and I just don't remember what it was or where it was. I only have 3 hours of sleep today, so key pair workaround. Let's go ahead and just type it in. Key pair workaround, and then find out where the heck it is. Find references. Aha. So here we see that we've got a blueprint that is a quote-unquote key pair workaround, and what it should actually be is a dictionary string string. You gotta spell dictionary right sometimes, otherwise it might confuse it some. Let's find more key pair workarounds and just... By the way, how's my audio quality today? I was worried about whether or not it was any good because I changed how I do some of my stuff. Some of my audio stuff. And I wasn't sure whether or not the quality was going up or down for streaming purposes. It goes up pretty substantially for recording purposes, but I don't know about streaming, so let me know what you think of my voice today, aside from the gravelly, dry rasp of a man who has not slept. Boom. Krozung says that audio is fine. Delph says audio is good. I wish Krozung would tell me in more detail whether fine is good, but I'll go with Delph on this, because I was trying to improve it. Previously, my audio had this flattened, fuzzy sound. I guess you might not even notice it if you don't have, an annoyingly precise ear for it, but I'm trying to do a little bit of amping up on the treble and bass just to give myself a little bit more clarity and velvet in my voice. Don't know whether or not it's working, though. Oh. And Pink Hair says that I sound fine. which is no help at all. That's a fine though. Okay. So here we've got a bunch of pieces that were built to work with our workaround, and we now need to have them work properly. So the ships are right now just a dictionary of strings, and that's a little bit difficult because we don't have any sort of reserved instances for name and cost and description. So the question is, should we use a dictionary entry, or should we put the dictionary inside of a wrapper class that contains name and cost and so on? And I think this is tough. Well, we've already set it up as having a wrapper class, so let's go ahead and make that blueprint work. Yeah, Delph says I think he's missing the new keyword on the property ships. The answer is that I kind of botched the refactoring. It's not even the same category of object anymore. So I'm not just missing the new. I physically can't use that setup. So I have to decide which approach I'd like to use instead. And the most common approach would be to use one of these blueprints. But these are mono behaviors, and I don't need the blueprint to be a mono behavior. So I can either take the blueprint and stop making it a mono behavior, or I can do something else. Now, in the last episode, I actually stopped the blueprints from being a requisite at all, so we can go ahead and just delete them and make them into a C# class. And then in turn, what we can do is, rather than link to a ship, we can just link to a dictionary like so. Elements. This will allow us to use the blueprint as a container class. So public string, a public override to string. And we're going to go ahead and return the name of this blueprint. So we're going to need to have a name. Yep. And then public string serialize. We're going to go ahead and serialize this object. So we're going to use lit.json. Yeah, Delph, you're right. I can't just equal dictionary string. I have to use this instead. So lit.json dot JSON mapper dot to JSON and this this object here. There we go. So this will be what we use in the future for our blueprints. But we have some blueprint stuff already set up here, as you can see. These no longer exist because this blueprint no longer works. So there's no longer even any reason to have this set up. Boom, it's gone. And that's fine. However, it's going to pop up a lot of errors. We have to go back and refactor all of the code that we were using to make it work with our new setup. If we look over at the universe.io, we've got this player file, and the player file contains a list of all these ships. But rather than these ships being a dictionary string like I set them up to be because I wasn't thinking straight, they're going to be blueprints. I'll make them a list of blueprints. Random assortment letter stops by to say what's up, and I am almost done making our serialization much nicer, i.e. working and not crap. So here you can see that we have this index of ship, blah, 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 blah. And rather than do key, we've got a name, got a proper name for these ships now. And that's that. There's no reason to worry about it. So here we pass in a ship as a dictionary string, and obviously we're going to want to pass it in as a blueprint because it doesn't make any sense to pass it in as a string. And down here we still have a reference to key pair workarounds. So when we're trying to save the ship, right now we pass in a name and a serialization. we really should be passing in a blueprint. And this is going to require us to go in and dig out a lot of the annoying crap we put in to try and work around JSON utility. So here we're going to go ahead and add the ship, like that. And that's going to cause a lot of errors every place it references save ship. So we'll just go ahead and find other references to it. That's the only place where save ship is referenced. I must have commented out the place in the ship itself. So let's go ahead and create a new class in here for serialization. So here you can see that we serialize all this stuff, and then we just serialize the pieces. This ends up as a long string of components. What we need to do is take that long string of components and turn it into something useful. There are two categories of serialization here, and this is the customization category rather than the full memory category. Okay, so we're going to have to work with that. Whew. Random Assortment Letter says, did the utilities receive an update? In that I got rid of them. Yes, I'm using lit.json now. Southern Cross says, hi, as a big bearded guy. Hello, Southern Cross. I am working on serialization today, so it's going to be largely coding. If you don't like coding and you are hoping to see 3D art, I am afraid you are out of luck. I've got some Twitter replies here. Just going to quickly comment. Nobody is saying anything specific, except for this guy. Unfortunately, the Z-axis sorting on the new Blender tool, 2D tools, is non-existent, so it's only good for floor maps. Perfect. So we have two categories of serialization with ships. One category of serialization takes the ship and saves it as a Unity asset, and that will save all of the parts and all that stuff. But we want to soften that up even. So rewind. One kind of our serializations saves the name and location of each of the pieces that go into this ship. And then the other saves the changes. And obviously the second type is used for individual ships inside of a class most of the time. Well, let's go ahead and see it unravel and unwrap some more. Let's switch to our other system so that we can get our serialization working properly again. But we'll have to look up all these pieces. So here we're asking for blueprint.data, target ship.deserialize blueprint.data. And that's not really what we want to do. We want to deserialize the blueprint. Elements. Why don't we call it data instead of elements? There we are. So here we say cannot convert from blueprint to dictionary string. So it looks like what we're doing is here at initialize, we are passing in a dictionary string of ship, and we really want to pass it a blueprint. So then we can say this is a blueprint. There we go. Name equals ship.name. Name text equals name. So previously, when we were passing stuff around, we were passing around a string key pair, and the string key pair was the name of the ship and the giant blob of serialization that goes with it. Now what we're doing is we're passing around a blueprint, which is the name of the ship, the description of the ship, the cost of the ship, and a giant blueprint, and a giant set of serialization. But the thing is that we actually are doing this wrong, because this data is being stored as a dictionary string rather than as a string. Now the reason I did this is because now we can serialize the blueprint itself without having a lot of has escape hatches. You know, not like ////// quote. So we're saving that final serialization to string until the last possible second. But I'm not 100% sure that this is a good approach. I've gotten my wires twisted a little bit because we've been doing this so much and I've had to change it so many times. So target ship.deserialize. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this wants. It wants just a giant string, which is the serialization. And it wants to turn that into an array of strings. So right now what I'm doing is I'm not actually using a dictionary string for that place. We don't need a dictionary string, we just need an array of strings. And that's because this array of strings is the list of each component in order. So because of that, we can just go through the data and unroll it into each component that the ship contains. This may need to be customized a little bit later. So here we're telling it to deserialize and we're passing it an array of strings. If we go to the declaration, we're supposed to be passing it a string. So what we're going to do instead is say that you're passing it an array of strings. And we will just go ahead and say that part serialization equals serialization. That should do. And then here we say that we can initialize the ship. BV is a blueprint visual. So when we say to initialize the blueprint visual as a blueprint, we just set up the pieces, and this here can be the ship description. And that'll do. But that's not what's going on here. Or maybe it was. Okay. So this blueprint says not all code paths return a value. Yeah, of course not. Lots of little errors. Hey, Jojo Jet, we're working our way through the annoying depths of this huge setup. So here we pass in the valid string blueprint, and we're actually going to want to pass it in as an array called data. But we're actually going to, we're going to pass it in as a blueprint, because the price of the blueprint is stored right in the blueprint itself. And we'll just go ahead and leave that as a note. Blueprint.price. Oh, wait, there it is. We don't have to do it. Boom. So there we are. We are able to fix that. That used to be a stub function, and now it works. That's nice. Here we've got another situation where string is not being converted over into... There we are. Perfect. Deserialize blueprint.data. I think we just want to pass it the blueprint, right? No, we want to pass it the data. It must be a situation where it didn't correctly reload here. There we are. Dude. Yeah, there is no... Oh, here, there's a problem. Trying to figure out what's going on, and it's just that there's so many things that need to be altered and fixed. And here we are. A list of blueprints. Why is that giving us trouble? Or a variable value or method group was expected. Is there something wrong with this list? Oh, I forgot the new. Jojo says, is there any reason you're keeping a public field as a list? Isn't it better to have it as an array? I'm going to be altering it a lot during the course of play, and I could write the boilerplate. Arrays are just flat out better, but I don't want to write all that boilerplate. Converting it later from a list into an array is relatively straightforward, so I'm not too worried about it. Also, the overhead of a list, when it's like that, it's only going to be like maybe 200 objects long at most. It's not a huge deal. All right. So let's take a look at our character. Here is our character. You can see that it's still got some hacks going on in here. Let's see whether or not it worked. No, it didn't. Can't assign value at JSON mapper. Why can't you assign the value? Universe IO 86. Let's take a look. User file equals JSON mapper to object player file read all. Okay, so the problem is that I tried to load up a corrupt file. Let's go ahead and delete the file. And let's take a look at how we're saving that file, because I think that that might be the problem. So when we are trying to serialize the player file, it should just be a list of ships. Yeah, that shouldn't have any problems. It might simply be that it was an old serialization. Jojo says the problem is field protection. If others need to access it, you could use a method add economy. Oh, that's just going to be an interface. It's already an interface, so it's not important to me. So I'm not too worried about that particular situation. The idea that I would try and protect it is counterintuitive, because the whole point of this game is that the modders can mod whatever they want. And if a modder wants to write a mod that goes in and changes all of the economies to max out or whatever, I'm not going to complain about that and hold it against them. So why didn't we get anything out of that? Oh, I forgot to turn... That's what the problem is. I forgot to turn the ship writing back on. So we're just going to go ahead and turn that back on for a moment. That explains the error, too, because it never actually saved the new ship. Delete. So here you can see that we're telling it to save ship, name, and serialize. What we actually need to do is tell it to save the ship, new blueprint, this. And then we'll need to go over to our blueprints and allow it to take in a ship, public blueprint ship. And we're going to want to set this up so that the ship, so name equals ship.name, and desk equals ship.desk, price equals ship.price. There's no ship.price. So price we need to actually calculate out. I don't really feel like it. To do, fix price and thumbnail. And then data equals ship.serialize, which returns a string. So data.part serialization. Yeah. Ship.serialize. That's not a very good way to do it. Parts serialize. Oh, that shouldn't be a... So here's serialize, and let's go ahead and make parts serialize. Eros says, hello, what's going on today? I am finishing up the new serialization engine. I replaced the old JSON utility with lit.json, and so far it's going pretty fast. Lots and lots of just twiddling around on the insides, though, so you know how that goes. Perfect. That should do. Let's give it a shot. No? Got some errors? Oh, there's no to array because it's just part serialization. Boom. Let's take a look, and there we go. Saving user data file. Let's take a look at our user data file and see what it has to say for itself. 5. It didn't save. That's interesting. Oh, Control R, not F5. That's fine. Yeah, sorry, Irost, it's the boring stuff today. Aha, so here, compare and contrast. I don't know whether or not any of you were paying attention when the old one was up, but you may remember that when the old one was up, this was like hack, hack, hack quote. And last week, it was hack, 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 hack quote. So now we've gotten it down to a single hack, and we can actually reduce it further if we really want to. But this includes all of the customizations that we put in, whereas we could not get JSON utility to include the customizations because JSON utility can't serialize strings. So here they are, custom amount 52. Let's go ahead and see whether or not those load up properly by changing scenes, deleting that ship call. Where is the ship? There it is. Don't need this. Let's pop on over to our garden. That's not going to work. There it is. Hit play. Jojo Jet says, any reason you aren't using Pretty Print? Because it's long. I didn't get it. Something wrong. Oh, no default constructor of Blueprint. That's fine. Arast says, my stream came right on time, otherwise his brain was going to explode. That's nice to hear, although I can't say that I'm going to be very smart today. We're having a pretty hard time with my 3 hours of sleep, although we are making decent progress. Oh, look at those errors. So here, if I pass in an empty price, then we have a problem. So if price equals null, return true, free. Yeah, RimWorld's Pretty Print is the reason I'm not using Pretty Print. I really am okay with these being highly dense and compressed. Moreover, I'm not convinced that Pretty Print would always work. When I was using JSON utility, it was super fragile, and I was halfway convinced that any kind of white space would cause errors. Lumpo, there it is, and we didn't get it to work. So what's the error here? Method not found. No default constructor for ship component serialization. That's fine. Let's go ahead and create one. That's a transform serialization, which also doesn't have a default. So transform serialization. And ship component serialization. There you go. Jojo Jet says he really hates JSON can't have multi-line strings and fields. There are a lot of things that I hate about JSON, but I'm willing to put up with them because it's better than XML for most of these situations. And what do we have? We have an error! Yay! So, so here is the ship, the Sterunicorn, and it is loaded. It's not got perfect loading. It looks like some of these aren't quite finished. Let's take a look at the parts and see whether or not they properly... Yeah, look! The amount is good. Haha! So this loading and unloading works, except for whatever this bug is here. So if customization.length is less than 2, and here we say object reference not set. So if there's no customization, then obviously the customization is less than 2. So there we go. So let's go ahead and start over. Give me a second to do this before I start to answer questions from the chat. There we go. Boom. That is not quite right. Is it? All the pieces loaded up. They're not in quite the right spot, but I'm willing to believe that that's because I moved the prefabs. So the offsets are now different than they were. 16, yep. Everything's good. Yeah! Everybody, we are like 90% of the way through our ship serialization. That's pretty nice. So just so you know, that entire ship takes up the amount of text that the amount of text that requires is this. That is the entire ship, including all of the customizations. And so you could email this. You could type it in manually if you had the patience. All right, so now over to the chat. Arast says, "Hey, Craig, any creepy humanoid enemies planned at your project? I'm kind of modeling my grandpa and something went wrong." I'm not at that phase yet, but I do plan to have plenty of a variety of monsters and or alien species. I haven't settled on that yet because I don't know precisely how good I can make the system work when it comes to rigging. There are a lot of questions as to what Mechanim will do. And Jojo says, "We have an error, yay, said by programmers more often than you would think." You could put that in a tweet. Yep. So, our spaceships now save properly. The only things that are still left for us to do, let me just pull over my list here. We don't serialize the room slots correctly yet. You can see that over here when it says current room 5-meter hab crew. So we're going to pop on over to our garden. Nope, our construction. And we can change the ship room serialization. So this is what it's supposed to look like. But I think that the issue is that these don't exist anymore as items. The prefabs have changed substantially. But the other problem is that I don't believe that the rooms are being properly loaded up. Well, I didn't actually check, did I? Let's go ahead and check. Your grandpa has a very long face. Seems like a kind man. All right. So if we were to pop over and take a look at our parts here, got the 5-meter hab rooms. They're not in the right spot, but that might be because the offset's incorrect. And if I look at the values, we have 1 medical bay and 1 bunk. So if we look at what we saved as our customized elements, medical room and hab room crew, so bunk. So those are correct. Ha ha! Everything's working. It's all working. The serialization is complete. Now all I have to do is actually make it properly save and load and let you edit stuff. So there's still some work left to do, but our serialization is going great. All right. Let's see. Aras is probably sharing more pictures of his naked grandpa. Looks like a melted Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm going to go ahead and post on Twitter. My serialization works great. Now I got rid of all the cruft and just used lit.json instead of JSON utilities. Saving and loading ships. Saving and loading works. All right, you know what that means, everybody? That means I will have a prototype out for you by Halloween for sure. Maybe much earlier, depending on whether or not I take a couple of minutes and work off stream on it. And that is wonderful. I like that. Oh, you're working on something interesting. That looks like a Kruzung has built a uh, thingy. It's got like car springs and mounts on it, so maybe it's supposed to be a catapult, or maybe it's supposed to be some kind of jack that raises up, the kind of thing that you take to trim treetops. I don't know. But that's in Blender, right? Is that in Blender? No, I guess it's not. No, it's not in Blender. No, it is in Blender. If that's in Blender, you could always use the new Blender 2D tools and doodle all over it, which I find is useful for making notes. Oh, it's the top of a train. Yeah, I see those. They're the things that connect up to the wire hooks on the top. Those are actually pretty simple. They just look complicated because everything else is covered in, a sheet of a box of some kind, so you can't see the complexity. Um, Basically, all that they really do is raise those electrical lines up and properly connect them. So I am pretty happy right now, and I am really scared because I literally got 3 hours of sleep. I woke up really early when the rain changed from medium heavy to somewhat heavy, which woke me up, and I couldn't get back to sleep after that. And because of that, I'm super nervous about the fact that this seems to be working 100% fine. That really should not happen. The only problem we're having right now is a problem with the translations on these objects. They appear to be offset incorrectly. And I'm like 90% sure that that is because of the offsets that changed with the prefabs rather than anything else. So let me look at the layers. Yeah. This doesn't have the right materials on it. That's the problem there. So if we were to put the correct materials on it, maybe? Yeah, there it is. And you can see that it's just in the wrong spot. And that's just because our prefabs have a different orientation than they did when we built the ship. Well, Krozung, the good thing about that is that they are on top of the train, and presuming that your people can't fly, nobody will ever see them. So what should I do for the rest of the day? What should I do for the next, I don't know, hour? 45 minutes maybe? Should I don't think I want to push my luck and work on the code anymore. I think that that is as much tax as I want to put on my brain today. So the two options are I can model stuff, including I could give a tutorial on how to use Blender 2D's new tools, Blender 3D's new 2D tools, or I could make all of the components that currently exist for the ship into actual components. I'm not sure I want to do that until I finish building them, though. JojoJet wants me to work on Iris windows. They're out of the question at this point. They don't fit in with this ship's design. I do have a better set of windows in mind, though. The windows that I did build last time were just prototypes, and I can build much better windows. I'm not sure if you guys want me to spend a full week doing nothing but trying to build a window. So that's kind of fun. Well, if people are looking down on it, then I guess that's important to get vaguely correct. Southern Cross says, I used to play with Lightwave and I tried 3D Max. Get a better PC, I can afford to pay for one of them. Blender's not too bad. It has a lot of downsides, but it is free. Southern Cross says, lost your stream. Anyone else lose the stream? Because I'm fine. Lightwave is pretty good. Cinema 4D is one of the new favorites around town. Basically everything but Blender is pretty good. All right, well I guess I'll work on Windows. I feel like working on Windows, so. Random assortment of letters says that the stream is fine and that it's definitely all Southern Cross's fault. He is just incompetent at internet connections. For shame. So we're going to build a new window, and we're going to use this same basic philosophy, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. So that'll be fun. Let's go ahead and build the basic window block. Oh, I guess I should turn on screencast keys. So actually, why don't I take this opportunity to show you the new 2D tools, the grease pencil tools. Do you think I should probably bounce the stream specifically to have the tool tutorial on a different file? So let me go ahead and do that. Gonna bounce the stream. And let's do it.